Hi, John. How are you this week?
Hi, Elliot. Doing fine. Hope you're okay.
I'm okay. Yep. This week, I saw a press release from the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of Columbia, and it was about the extradition of some North Korean nationals to the United States to stand trial for money laundering. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did see that, and they, among other things, been charged with avoiding sanctions. So it was a twofer. You know, it's dealing with money laundering and sanctions evasion, which obviously is two key areas for our community.
Indeed. First, they indicate that it's the first ever extradition of any North Korean nationals to the United States. There's also, it's interesting in some ways what's not in the press release. So it doesn't name the country from which they were extradited. And it's, I would say, somewhat circumspect in how it described the investigation, which I'm not sure what this means, but it was, this investigation was led by the FBI's Minneapolis field office, which, presumably the first identification of something unusual going on somehow crossed their desk, and usually that's how the FBI decides who gets to run with it.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, because we know that the FBI rotates agents throughout various states and offices. So having an international impact doesn't necessarily have to be in New York, Miami, or DC, and that the agents are working throughout the country on cases. And this is a perfect example of that. The other thing, just real quick, that I noticed, going back to things that we care about in the AML universe, is the use of front companies and phony bank accounts registered to the false names, that sort of thing, which none of that's new, but that was one of the tools used by the co-conspirators, and that's obviously continues to be a challenge in the AML field, is detecting the use of front companies.
Yes. So again, something that the community have been working on for years and years, and actually some changes coming out of the Anti-Money Laundering Act will assist us with, still is front and center. The other thing that I'm sure many of our listeners know is that the FBI actually has international offices, and they talk about cooperation with international partners. But I'm sure that there were agents who actually office internationally who would have been involved in this kind of a thing, and in fact, their counterintelligence division was actively involved, as well as the field office.
Right, and they point out in the press release that FBI working with foreign authorities, which is, again, has been going on for quite a while, but that's also a positive. While the dollar amounts weren't excessive, the 1.5 million, they were attempts to violate not just U.S. sanctions, but UN sanctions. Mm-hmm. And according to the indictment, the key conspirator was affiliated with North Korea's primary intelligence organization. So that to me is a clear indicator of the importance that this administration is placing on North Korea and their various illegal activities.
Yes, I agree with that. Obviously, for a very long time, the relationship between the United States and North Korea has been rocky. And even when there's been some effort by one administration or another to see if there's a way to thaw it a little bit, it tends to end up remaining rocky. And clearly, this kind of activity isn't going to make anybody feel too excited about the idea of rushing to thaw it out without some real concessions and that kind of thing. So,
right. And I would just say the reference to U.S. banks or correspondent banks was they were fooled by this as well. And no amount of beautiful letters between the countries are going to change the fact that we need to stay on our toes on this. So I think it's, again, an important announcement on a number of levels. And as you point out, we need to continually remind everybody that the FBI does not just work on domestic issues, does a great job working with their foreign counterparts.
Yes. It'll be interesting to follow the case. I mean, this is only at the indictment stage.
Right.
But I don't know this for a fact, but I would expect something like this could move reasonably quickly. I expect that the prosecutors had things pretty well lined up before they would issue an indictment in where they were going to have an extradition, because extradition is, a complicated matter all by itself.
Right. So if people want to read the press release, it's Wednesday, March 24th, DOJ's U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of Columbia. So with that, Elliot, have yourself a good, safe weekend.
You too.
All
Talk
right.
next week. Bye-bye.
See you.